ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting episode of Loss of Lieutenant. Tonight, we will be talking about our Borderbash 2026 experiences, and I'm also joined by my fellow host, only one of us tonight, Nick.
Hello.
So, Nick, I think we've decided to do something a little slightly bit different than a typical tournament recap.
Yes. So, as interesting as hearing people talk about a bunch of games can be,
That
I thought we put some
that
purpose to
absolutely no one cares about as well, and has zero
it.
context
Exactly.
for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And look at it in the context of how this would affect our list building and revise our lists based on our experiences at the event.
Yeah, maybe throw some hot takes in there. Maybe get a little engagement farm going on. But before we get to that, we do have our sponsors, Baron of Dice. If you liked a brand new set of dice, you can use code LOSS to get 5% off your purchase. We also have our Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/loss of lieutenant, you can give us $3 Australian dues a month, and you can join our live chat and yell at us when we say ridiculous things on the internet. And we have our lovely events. So, this very first one is at the Ottawa Gaming Convention. I'm guessing that's in Canada.
It is in Ottawa. Surprise, surprise.
Is that in Canada?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
It's in Ontario, Canada.
Yes, there we go. On the 29th and 30th of August, 2026, the missions are Uplick Center, Evacuation, Hardlock, Outbreak, and Area of Interest. A very solid mission lineup there with no real surprises. Well, maybe Outbreak's a bit of a surprise, but yeah. And then
I haven't seen Outbreak infiltrating into much yet, so this is nice to see it showing up.
Yeah, I think maybe you can. Some people might want to homebrew it a little bit just for that. It's a bit daunting having a specialist limitation rather than a bonus, but we'll see how it goes. And then the big one for us coming up, we have, of course, Burn City Brawl in Melbourne, the Loss of Lieutenant tournament basically now. It is the 12th and 13th of September this year at the Gaming Arena once again. The mission lineup is Raid the Kazarebu, the ITS version, so no crazy amount of Eclipse zones. We have Evacuation, we have Uplink Center, and then day 2 is our Objective Room missions with Critical Intervention. And I thought I'd put it last because Dante won Borderbash. It is Dante's mission last launch. Tickets are $80. If you're a Melbourne Wargaming Incorporated member, you get $10 off that, and there is $5 off until the end of June, which means that if all of those things happen, it's a $65 ticket price. And I can confirm that we are running the stream once again. Hopefully, we know a little bit more about what we're doing this time, and we can get an even better experience than last year.
Yes, and hopefully Jordan and I will not become so engrossed in the game that we stop remembering that we're on stream.
it sometimes Infinity games are almost kind of like I don't know if you know the video game Armor, or just games where there's massive peaks. Sometimes there's big lulls where nothing happens, and then there's massive peaks, and you kind of fall asleep for 30 minutes while someone's deciding how to play their turn. All right, so with that out of the way, we move on to our post-tournament list revisions for Borderbash 2026. Excellent event. I had much less alcohol than I thought I would, but I dare to say it was the most fun Borderbash I've had so far.
Yes, yeah, it's getting better each year. We are slowly figuring out little things we can revise and how to make it better. Was really excited because we had a whole, I think it was like 5 or 6 Western Australia.
We had a whole contingent from Perth, yeah. And that's no
Yes.
small
Yeah.
feat. That's if you compare that to the European standard, that's like going from like whatever's next to Russia to like Italy or something silly. Like it's a massive distance.
Yeah.
And they were really, really lovely
Yeah.
guys.
Yes. So hopefully we can. I think we can. I think Tassie was the only one we didn't have someone from, unless it was Northern Territories as well.
I think there was.
But
I think
very
there
good
was
distribution and getting in from all over the country.
absolutely. One thing we did fail to mention is there is going to be a Perth 2-day event in November. So it might actually be cheaper to attend that if you're from Singapore than if you're from Victoria. It might. I think it's actually closer, but yes. Hopefully that's something that we do as well. But that is post BCB. All right, Nick. I think you're up first.
Yep.
Give us a quick rundown.
Yeah. So I had my two lists. The first list was kind of based on what I'd been running lately and enjoying playing. And then the second list was written specifically for direct action missions because my first list did not have a model that wanted to be a Cheops because it wanted to use a marker state.
Yeah.
So the non-direct action mission, group one was a Caronted LT hacker, Armand MSV1, Umber Leggett HD Plus forward deploy version, the Rindak Paramedic forward deploy mine layer version, Void Operator Killer Hacker, Imatron, Greif Impersonator, Malignos Forward Observer, and a Noctifer missile launcher. Group 2 was a Liberto mine layer, and that was it. I thought that would make more people think about it, and the only person who saw that and went, was in round 5. So apparently it was not as interesting as I thought it would be. The other one was for the direct action missions specifically. So we've got an anathematic lieutenant hacker, again, Arbond MSV1, Sheshkin Red Fury, the Rindak Paramedic FTO, so the non-forward deploy version, Void Operator Killer Hacker, a single dot Arazi, Gryphops Impersonator, a Speculo with boarding shotgun, a Flashbot, and a Raziat Spitfire.
Very interesting. I like how you're really pushing the limits of like how limited insertion plays. You've kind of if we go back a year or so, you're kind of developing into a player that really loves to effectively use hidden deployment and combat jump and off the table stuff. And that, I mean, are you kind of letting that carry your kind of list making choices now to kind of get maximum efficiency out of these really good impersonators and like the Razyat and kind of stuff? And then you're able to just take Anathematic, Armon, Sheshkin, Rindak in a single list.
Basically, yeah, I've learned how to make the most out of models and a smaller order pool so that first with the second list, I didn't practice it as much as I wanted, but the list pretty much was prepared to let the anathematic sit there and marker state the whole game until it became necessary maybe to move it out in turn 3. But part of that was also one of the 2 missions it was for was Cutthroat. And I felt the anathematic hacker lieutenant was probably one of the safest picks I could have for a lieutenant for Cutthroat.
Absolutely, especially in Vanilla Combined. How have you been enjoying Vanilla Combined? And like, I remember us talking last Borderbash, and you were going to you're taking on this challenge of limited insertion combined. Do you think it's been like successful? Do you think it's like a
Yes.
real viable way to play combined?
It's a fun way, and I think it is viable. But there are definitely some difficulties with it. It does allow you to take far more of the large, stompy, expensive pieces than you'd normally see in a list. So some of my earlier versions were running like a Carotid, Sheshkin, and Achilles,
Right.
but I found that there was too much overlap between Sheshkin and Achilles to run both of them, and I wasn't getting enough coverage with those models. Uh, that's one of the reasons Armand is in there. Normally, I'd say Armand is an okay piece, but in limited insertion, vanilla combined, I think he. I wouldn't say is a necessity, but he's very close to a necessity because he covers so many things with only taking up one troop slot.
Yeah.
Most of the time, if I was going second, Armand was there not necessarily to survive until I got a turn, but to eat up 5 or 6 orders from my opponent on their turn one so that the rest of my army gets to do something.
Well, that was definitely my experience. And spoiler alert, Nick and I played each other in round 2. And Armand did exactly that. What kind of so for players who kind of want to explore limited insertion, kind of what's your recommendation, like starting off point? Is there kind of like something required in terms of kind of your mindset?
I think it's looking. Oh, sorry. As far as mindset, just the commitment to realize that you're going to have a third less orders, depending on how you write your list. Now, if you notice, like with the first one, it does have 11 order generating models. So it is kind of strained from what the traditional idea of a limited insertion list is to what N5 now says a limited insertion list is. Even though that term, I guess, no longer exists.
Technically, it's yeah, technically not, I guess, but
yeah. So often people refer to limited insertion meaning one combat group. And I've started to dabble a little outside of that, where I'm just restricting myself to 10 deployed orders so that it qualifies for not being stripped. But by having multiple off-table units, so for instance, list 1, there are 10 models in group 1 with 1 tactical awareness order, but there's 2 models that deploy in hidden deployment, so they don't count, which means that deploys as 9 orders, and then Liberto is a 10th order. So it still qualifies, even though it's running 2 combat groups and more than 10 models. I think in the approach to it, you have to look for models that do multiple things. Most models have to cover more than one aspect so that when you lose a model, you're not vulnerable to having a single model scalpeled out and losing an aspect of your list. For instance, the Void Operator Killer Hacker has become a staple in my list because it is incredibly fast with the 6-2 movement, jet propulsion, super jump. It can go into a marker state and an impersonator at that, so it can get past layers of defense. But it also gives me access to cyber mines, so that in addition to running up, pushing a button, if I need to have more layers of defense, it can just cyber mine and then go back into a marker state. Similarly with, like we talked about Armand, where he can cover the AROs, and with the MSV1, yes, he's vulnerable to white noise, but setting up white noise is an order. Well, at least an order, assuming they roll well.
Yeah.
So even by having the MSV1, they're burning orders to white noise before they attempt to shoot him. And his goal is to burn orders. So they've achieved my goal by taking the longer way to more reliably dispose of him.
You reckon you're going to make a comeback to 15 to regular lists and kind of apply the lessons of extreme order efficiency, or are you going to kind of stick to mastercrafting the limited insertion?
I think I'm going to try dabbling in Shaz some, because I don't think I could break the limited insertion habit if I was running it in Villa Combined or Onyx. Because I've spent enough time crafting down the limited insertion for those. Better to step away, look at it from a different perspective, and then come back. That said, the list revisions I made after Borderbash, I am enjoying, and they might come up again. But because I'm commentating Bird City Brawl, I don't have a major tournament I'm looking to go play anytime in the next few months. So I have a bit more freedom to just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks and see what I end up enjoying.
Lovely. All right. Let's hop into your thoughts pre-event.
So before the event, one of my concerns was that both lists had to have last-minute revisions because of the Mazebreaker update. The cost of the Greif went up by 1 point. I think it was absolutely worth the 1 point to get the silenced pistol over the breaker pistol. But that did require rewriting lists, and there were gaps in there that I didn't have time to find. I had some concerns with my second list because I didn't have enough reps with Sheshkin and the Anathematic. Mostly because I couldn't find anyone who wanted to run the direct action missions for practice.
Really?
Each of the practice events I went to, no one wanted to play the direct action missions. They basically looked at it as Cutthroat is just kill stuff, therefore I don't need to practice it, which is not true.
Very silly.
And Supremacy is one of the more straightforward in there's 3 buttons, there's no rush to put, it's 4 buttons, push 3 of them sometime before the end of the game. It's not a competitive button push, and then just walk forward some and hold zones. I think it may have been that not many people split their lists as I did. And so they were getting practice with both their lists in the other 3 missions.
Yeah, that's fair.
So my other concern was racer bots, just in that they, with how recent they were and how kind of randomly they were spread, I wasn't sure what that was going to do to other lists. I only ran into them in one list, but they basically were 4 cheerleaders that blocked the entire backboard edge from the Razgat.
And they have the effect of very efficiently placing down mines, which against low order lists can be quite catastrophic. Potentially, you definitely have pieces like the Rindak that just mathematically deal with mines well. It's just the risk analysis on that is if the Rindak fails, it's way more catastrophic than if a Dadarazi or something like that fails.
Yes. Yeah. I didn't have, and think about this more, in my first game I did run into some racer bots as well and Pilot X. But I never had any of them try to plant a mine. Either they were there to defend the board edge against Razgat, or they were used to speed up a deployable repeater into a position that was inconvenient for me.
That probably also comes down to new model syndrome. People don't necessarily know how to use it, and people may not have used mind dispensers before. So it's almost like that thing where you write a list. If you've never practiced it or played it, you just forget certain things have this equipment or this weapon or this skill, and then you look after and go, God, that mind dispenser would have been excellent for that random last 2 orders that I had where I did nothing.
Yes. And I think racer bots they're very open to that problem because they have so many weapons.
They have ridiculous amount of skills.
Yes. Yes, I look forward to and hope that they will get the Icadron treatment because they just have too many weapons that do too many different things.
Well, I actually thought someone suggested that you make specifically Pilot X's RacerBots peripherals and make them significantly cheaper, maybe 4 points or 5 points. And then, like, killing Pilot X turns them off, and it's not a ridiculously efficient way to build a list and get a ridiculous amount of tools at the same time. That's if people turn, you know, it's still up in the air whether people think it's ridiculously overpowered or not, or if it's, like, I don't necessarily think in terms of, is this too strong? I more so think, is this fun and healthy for the game? And I think RacerBots definitely have the potential, when you consider putting them in really strong hands, to almost feel like certain players get locked out of games with just a sheer amount of stuff that they can do for whatever cost they are.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's enough about RacerBots. Let's move on to your round 1 versus Damien's OSS. 7 OSS players at Borderbash out of 51. Not really a surprise, but it, I'm sure, brought along a lot of different variants of new style OSS.
You remember how many? I think for OSS plus Aleph, it was like 12.
I can look it up
because there was one Steel Phalanx as well.
I can definitely.
So it was like Aleph and Sectorials took up like
there was at least 3 Steel Phalanx.
Oh, okay.
And I can say that because I played one, and you played one, and there was another one.
Okay. Well, while you look that up, so yeah, game 1 Supremacy into Davian's OSS. This was my first Maximus that I had to run into this tournament. Nothing too noteworthy. Ended up with a 6-4 win. Davian was doing excellent job at pinging all the consoles, and I managed to get zones up on him.
Yeah, so this was Supremacy.
Oh, yes, Supremacy. Did I say Superiority?
Oh, sorry. Superiority. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, go on. Sorry.
So overall, very happy with the list performance. I was in Loss of Lieutenant on turn 2 because my Anathematic got isolated. So, oops, maybe a little bit more practice there. But that's what you get when Racer X tries, or Pilot X tries to isolate you, and you roll like an 18 on your Trinity back.
Damn.
So, yeah. Though we did have to count, because partway through my first turn, we realized that I had a lot more veterans than I thought I did, because I hadn't even planned for that.
Oh, yeah. What? Rendak, 2 Imatrons.
Yeah. There's a Dodarazi in there.
Dodarazi.
Yeah. So, probably the most interesting thing I took away from this game was I really liked how Damien's list was organized. Specifically how he ran his group 2, because it was just something that I hadn't thought of before or considered, and so it was a novel approach to me. His group 2 was 2 net rods, a baggage bot, an Evo bot, and a forward observer with forward observer bot with tack aware. This made it very awkward when I brought my Raziat in to try to reduce his order pools in an efficient manner. So if I go after group 1, where most of the guns are, if I deplete that group, he just spends a command token, Max jumps to group 2, and now has an entire order pool to go with. If I hit group 2 to strip the net rods, the baggage bots, I have stripped a forward observer bot of a few orders that it no longer uses to push buttons.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So I found it awkward to try to solve that, and that was fun to play. The forward observer bot basically, because he went first, after he'd gotten some heads put down, he just ran it up, pushed buttons, ran it up, pushed buttons. And I think he censored at one point as well to knock something out of camouflage.
Liberto, mine, something like that.
I think it may have been one of the mines, and it may have also been the anathematic. But either way, yeah, interesting take on a group 2. Enjoy playing into that.
Excellent. Just for everyone's information, there was 7 OSS, there was 4 Steel Phalanx, and there was 2 Vanilla, for a total of 13 Aleph players out of 51. So definitely a lot of new stuff riding around. Not necessarily in Steel Phalanx, although they picked up some little things. But yeah, when we get to my side, I'll tell you how much I'm kicking myself that I didn't build against the meta. All right. Oh my god,
So,
it's me!
Round 2. Yes. I played my list 1 into Tristan's Neo-Colonial Army. Game number 2 and Maximus number 2. So, yeah, not thrilled on that one. Basically, this was B-Pong, so I won the roll, gave Tristan first turn. Turn 1, Tristan hits me hard, and then I put a body on the button in the beacon and score scenario points.
Absolutely.
Then turn 2, Tristan hits me hard again, but he remembers to put a body on one of the buttons. And then I take my turn and put a body on the button in the beacon and score full scenario points.
Yep.
Turn 3, Tristan hits me hard again. Holds the button in the beacon, and I start the bottom of 3 with 6 orders and 1 model with a move stat.
Incredible.
So I do not have enough bodies left. I hold the last button, and Tristan secures HVT for a 7-6 win.
It was a very, very close game. It is surprisingly difficult to murk even a limited insertion army when everything either has Mim 6, 3 wounds, or it's dodging on like 15s. It's doing ridiculous stuff. But yeah, we got there in the end.
Yeah. So this is the point at which I realized that I did not have a plan for Max coming into this tournament because I did not expect to see this many of him. And I did not have time to revise a list to go into a Max list because he was unpopular as of 3 days before the tournament.
And now you're the most experienced player against Max in the country.
So in game 1, I pretty much just avoided Max using terrain. Gaming's Max ended up being an arrow piece more than anything else. But that said, he was on like the tallest building that was in the middle of the table. And so I spent a lot of time smoking and cautious moving to just not have to deal with that gun. Game 2, plans against Max were starting to come into focus. I used the Greif to knock Max out of his tag. Unfortunately, that means the zero viz zone goes down, And then Tristan kills the Greif with extreme prejudice and makes sure that he is nowhere near the table anytime soon, so that Max can go and do his thing.
Absolutely.
I did make a mistake in that I misheard Tristan and I thought Max had NWI. So that went into my calculations for the game. And because I thought Max had 2 effective wounds left, I didn't engage him. If I knew and had not made the mistake of mishearing that he only had 1 effective wound left, I would have definitely engaged him, probably with the Carotid to finish him off. But running the math in my head, I didn't feel I could spare the orders to put 2 more wounds on Max. Only 1 more, and he had what I thought was 2.
Right. So you thought he was 4 and NWI?
Yes.
Damn.
And I think part of that is because his non-tag profile is NWI.
Makes sense.
So, yeah. Confusing new profiles. It happens. Still an excellent game. And yeah, 7-6 because of secure HVT. Yeah, not a bad game to feel about losing.
Absolutely. And it's kind of where the bodies come to my advantage a little bit.
Yes. Yeah.
I will say...
It was fun.
Go on.
Oh, sorry. It was fun to have the Legate generate 4 orders by itself. So, unfortunately, he is still only 1 body and can only hold 1 thing at a time.
Yeah. I will say, so everyone's kind of hyping up Max, so to speak. For 84 points, he still is only throwing... he's throwing numbers that are technically worse than, like, a Squallow. His real advantage is obviously survivability. His real advantage is obviously being effectively a big HI rather than a tag because he's not possessable. I definitely found in this game and pretty much every game I used him that he's still going to take 5 or 6 orders to punch through Armand or punch through a Noctifer or something like that. His real strength is incredibly flattening the curve to the point where I can afford to fight Armand and the Noctifer 4 or 5 times, and I took a wound.
Yes. Yeah, he's an interesting tag now in that he gunfights well enough, but not great for a tag. However, with Immunity Arm, he just takes so long to put wounds on that it doesn't matter that he's not the best shooting tag in the game, especially in Pano, because as long as you have the orders, or even the ARO, he can just keep throwing dice out, and unless your opponent brings breaker, viral, whatnot, he's losing 1 per order at the worst. And he's got 4 wounds to do that with.
I think he's basically the only tag in the game that I could afford to fight Armand and the Noctifer at the same time. Because the Noctifer was already dogged, and I'm like, I'm not going to put shots there. I know it's going to die. I'm going to dump everything into Armand, and it's still after that, it took, 2, 3, 4 times to finally put Armand down with Max, and you couldn't do that with pretty much any other piece except maybe like a Yanhuo, but even then, it being only 2 wounds is a bit more scary than Max being effectively 4.
Yes. Yeah, I think even Yanho, that's not a great fight it wants to take, strictly because it's forcing it to take unopposed rolls, and like 2 wounds, unopposed rolls add up quickly.
Absolutely.
Whereas Max, you could just afford to ignore the Noctifer's ARO. And that's probably the only model of the game that you could say that about.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, let's move on to end of day 1. We have Achiel Interference.
So, played again list 1 into Val's Steel Phalanx. If you will note, this has been 2 Aleph and 1 not Aleph that's running max. However, Steel Phalanx, no max. There was an Ajax, who apparently, according to our game, can only fail an armor save against shock mines, but fails every armor save he tries to make against shock mines.
Did Ajax die to 3 shock mines?
No, I couldn't get a third one down.
Damn.
He removed every shock mine model on the table after he took the second wound. So, key points to this. I went second. Val was unable to do a classified on his second turn. And I was, which meant going into turn 3, he was down on classifieds and was not in the running for doing a classified every round. He did manage to get to the button and just cycled. I think the second or third time he cycled, the card that came up was a duplicate of the other card that was up, which meant we flipped a third one. And he was looking for some very specific classifieds to do. Because he was so focused on that, he only checked the third classified to see that it wasn't what he was looking for and went back to flipping the same classified. The classified that he left up was Spotlight or Forward Observe an enemy model. So on my turn, I ended up, after I got some heads put down and white noise put up, my Caronted had 2 orders in which to spotlight an unconscious flashbot, and that would give me a 5-4 win. This is a 96.6% chance of a win. So Val wins 5-3.
That's insane.
Because I can't spotlight an unconscious body with a Caronted on 2 orders. And those that I get through, he saves. So, other than that part of the game, starting to feel kind of that lack of network projection in this list. Some of the rewrites, especially getting the second mine layer in there, I did sacrifice some repeater bots for Icadrons to get the extra points. I'm also seeing that I'm going second in most games. I'm not able to use the forward deploy on the Legate, because if I forward deploy him and go second, he's 1 picture and 2 Trinities away from being removed. And I can't afford to have him lost before I get a turn.
Yep.
I've also started to notice that I've got a lack of guns between 8 and 16 inches. So starting to see some cracks in the list, specifically around the last minute revisions I made. But we'll get to that at the end.
I can definitely say that in our game, your lack of network projection kind of let me run a red eye into your flank and eliminate quite a valuable piece in the Killer Hacker Vector. I can't remember what it's Void.
Yeah, the Void up Killer Hacker.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And you spent the orders to do that cleanly, without risking it at all, just to make sure that you got him scalpeled out. Because he was set up to lock that side of the board if you had not killed him on top of one.
I definitely think that network projection can kind of be attributed to almost like a multiplier for your pieces. Almost both of your top pieces being the Corronted Athematic and the Umbra.
Legate.
Yeah. Both, like, they can't be everywhere at once, and network projection puts them both in different places at the same time. It makes me, if you can force me to interact with those pieces, I think that your list becomes a lot more scary.
Yeah. In a lot of my practice games with this, I went first, and the forward deploy on the Legate is amazing. It's got deployable repeaters, so a lot of times my network projection was top of one. The Legate wants to go somewhere, and it just moves 6, drops repeater instead of moving 2 more.
Yep.
This does not work as well if he starts in my deployment zone and I go second. So he is one of the models I look at afterwards for revisions.
All right, and then we'll go to the pub.
I will say,
go on.
Oh, sorry. I end the first day 1 and 2, but with 8 tournament points.
Yes.
Which means I have absolutely no idea where I stand.
Hey, that's basically 2 wins.
Yeah.
I think I ended on 14. I thought, because minor wins are a bit jank. Anyway, we all go to the pub. We all have a nice time.
Yes.
I have the most, unfortunately, terrible smash burger I've had in my entire life. It was, I think, did you have the smash burger as well?
I'm trying to remember what happened Saturday night.
We went to the Astor Motel Hotel with...
Yes. Oh, yeah, I did. And actually, mine was good. Jordan's was good. I got it on the recommendation of Jordan.
So did I. Jordan hadn't got it yet, but... Yeah, mine was mid-rare. And I'm like, I don't think a smash burger is ever supposed to be mid-rare.
No.
Mine was pink in the middle. I was like, this is...
Okay, that's unfortunate.
And it had no seasoning whatsoever. Anyway.
Oh.
I had a really nice blackcurrant cider, so that made up for it. But we all went to bed, preferably not too late at night, and we woke up early in the morning for a absolute killer of a mission. It's Cutthroat.
Good transition. So I put my list 2 into Sebastian's Vanilla Pano. This was one of the WA players. This is Maximus number 3 out of 4 rounds.
3 different factions too.
Yes. But I now have a plan for Maximus. So my plan for Maximus that I came up with overnight was, again, it was the Greif still, but if I can get the Greif's silenced pistol +1 burst into Max's back arc, I can abuse the fact that tags can't go prone to deny him an ability to react. So if I shoot him in the back with a silenced pistol, it's -3 because of no line of fire. Oh, sorry, he can only dodge. It's -3 for no line of fire, -6 for silenced, and the first roll will be additional -3 for surprise attack. So, assuming Max is a Keops, that puts him down to dodging on a 4.
Yes.
This plan works better if he's not the Keops, though, because then it would put him on 1s, and subsequent turns he's on 4s. So if he fails to dodge, and I hit him, as long as I've positioned it so that he has nowhere to guts, that he can't do anything, and he stays facing the other direction. Normally, you would guts prone and use that to spin, but he can't go prone because he's a tag. With all of this thought into it, Sebastian never gave me the opportunity. Max was his Keops, and he did an excellent job at making sure he withdrew Max just enough that I couldn't get the Greif into a position where I could do that. So turn 3 ends, and we both look at each other and admit that neither of us has any idea of who just won the game. We have 0 lieutenant kills. Both of our key ups are alive. Both of our key ups have killed 5 models.
Damn.
So we're now at the point of counting army points killed. Tally up my victory points. I've got 161 left on the table, which is even more of a I have no idea anymore. He totals his up, and he has 156 on the table. Clarify, we both had 300 points to start with, and I go up 4-1 because of 5 army points killed.
Nice.
I don't think I have had a closer game of Cutthroat at any point in Infinity. So ended up much happier with how the list performed. Especially, this was the first time that I used Sheshkin, and I felt comfortable about how I used Sheshkin. She was my key ops, and basically would bring her up, scalpel out a few things, bring her back. Bring her up, scalpel out a few things, bring her back. And worked to make sure I saw little things. So one of the buildings I hit her on the roof of on my second turn, when she vaulted the ladder, she could see in through a window at a different building and see the unconscious flashbot on the floor. And so seeing that going, okay, free shot, excellent. She put it in the dead state, check, there's a kill for her. Again, lack of network projection. It wasn't as much in this because I was bunkered more and I was doing my best just not to have my anathematic ever exposed. But it still would have been nice if I could have had network projection just a little bit further away. Therefore, if Max tries to do a run in, I have multiple orders that I can try to isolate him or carbonite him while he comes in. Did have a fun first turn with the red eye. I saw the red eye go down as the reserve and figured I have to kill this. This cannot survive. He can never play with the red eye. And so So Armand spends my entire turn putting it down. He then puts Armand down, spends several orders trying to get the red eye back up, successfully speedballs the red eye up after a gizmo kit failure, brings the red eye over to plunging fire Sheshkin, and Sheshkin kills it with suppressive fire.
Poetic justice.
So the red eye has gone unconscious twice during the first round of the game. And it did not see the second one because a Dodarazi impetuous past it and dropped chain rifles on its corpse to make sure that it was down.
It is actually interesting. So you can't, even when it's knocked down, you can't engage it still, can you?
I believe you can because it, if it's unconscious, is on the ground.
Okay. How can you speedball the red eye? That's probably how. I'm guessing.
I could be wrong. I did not look it up at the time because
it's not on the ground if it's conscious. Okay. Well, then Sebastian cheated.
Okay, could be wrong. That's fine. It was still an amazing game.
Yeah, I can't remember. I can't remember the ruling of aerial, but yeah, if you can't, then I suppose you can't coup de grace it. And red eye being 6 armor against chain rifles can be frustratingly annoying to just drop chain rifles on sometimes.
Okay, I will have to look that up once Tristan takes over with his side. Yeah, I having not played a flyer yet because apparently I like factions that don't get flyers. I just deferred to the player who was playing the flyer.
I mean, it would make sense. It kind of makes intuitive sense, but you know.
Okay.
All right.
And so game 5 is in by list 1 into John's OSS. However, no Maximus, because apparently he hadn't repacked his army since the previous tournament, and therefore Max was not in his box.
Oh, so if he did repack it, there would have been a Maximus.
Yeah. So, okay, Josh has just brought it up. It is an automatic skill, and that is not an effect while unconscious. So it is on the ground. I believe that's what Josh was saying. Unless I read that wrong.
No, the box says basically you can CC it if it's unconscious.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, this game ended up kind of similar to my third game, in that at the end of turn 3, I went second. John had killed all three of my HVTs. I had killed his 2 decoys and had pushed 2 buttons. And I had 2 orders to push the final button and kill the final HVT for a 7-5 victory, which means John won 7-4.
Yay.
Because I could not roll a whip check to save my life if it is the last 2 orders of the game.
Even with operational learning?
Part of this was also... Sorry?
Even with operational learning?
I did not have enough orders to continue to push the button.
Okay. So 2 separate button presses or something like that.
No, I had 2 orders. The first one,
push the button, and you did that.
Second one, kill final HVT.
Okay. I get it.
And I had plenty there to kill the final HVT. I just needed to actually succeed on a whip 13 roll because my Carotid was dead. Oh.
Oh no. It's whip 16 because it's absorbed the Carontid's personality?
It's whip 16 because the Carontid was dead and I rolled a 16. Okay. And that's why we do these in hindsight, to go back over and see what we did wrong. And apparently at that point, it was, I forgot to use Pneumatica to transfer to the one who was about to push a button. Okay.
Never a perfect game played.
I will certainly remember that next time. Okay. So, again, kind of lack of network projection, especially going into a hacking-heavy OSS being run by an Asura and having a lot of 2-legged remotes. The lack of being able to project to an area that I haven't put a model really started hurting this. Same with the lack, again, of 8 to 16-inch guns. Some of the changes I made last minute to accommodate the new points, I really would have done better if I'd been able to test those. And unfortunately, there was not time.
Yep.
So
that's okay, because, well, this is basically summarizing.
Post-tournament thoughts on list 1, again, lacks network projection, and it needs something in that 8 to 16-inch range. The Legate hit Hack Device Plus, because I went second in 4 out of 5 games, the 4 deploy was unusable, and that meant he started further back with a shorter range gun and worse network projection. The Rindeck Mine Layer, it was interesting, but 6 points is a lot for that mine layer over the base forward deploy profile. I also kind of missed, especially seeing things like Max and Flyer having the adhesive launcher rifle and the burst 2 flash, because those just offer one more vector to go after something that says you can't hurt me.
Yep.
That said, Liberto, excellent. Loved having Liberto there. It really helped complement Armand for a turn 1 speed bump that I don't care if it lives or dies. And having only a single order on it, if it survives to my turn, it walks 4 inches and lays another mine. And if it survives to turn 2, it walks 4 inches and lays another mine. And I'm happy with 8 points on that.
Yep.
List 2, again, lacking the network projection. However, this was written specifically for Keops. It was written because I didn't have a model that, in my first list, that was a viable Keops and didn't want to go into a marker state. Considering it won both games, and I feel like I have more experience with it now, I'm okay with just kind of shelving it for the moment. It was there to do a specific job. It did the job, and I'm happy with that. In general, we kind of discussed it at the very start. Armand is amazing in limited insertion, really little combined. He just covers enough that he buys you a first turn if you go second. And if you go first, he is a very scary piece because of the combination of MSV1 and MIM6. There's not a lot of aero pieces in the game that want to soak that for many orders. So if you go first, he is either going to kill it or get it to put its head down, which means that now you can ignore it.
Absolutely.
So, yep.
Oh, right.
So,
revisions.
Yeah, so revisions for the first list. To no one's surprise who has listened this far in, the Leggett Hacking Device Plus goes from a forward deploy to the FTO profile. This means the pitchers get replaced by pitchers replace the deployable repeaters. So there's network projection back because it's BS13. And its Vulcan shotgun +1 burst gets replaced by a K1 combi. So there's a bit more in that 8 to 16 range band, while still letting it fight down to 0 inches as it tries to get in for close combat.
Yep.
The Rindak mine layer, it was interesting. It is not 6 points worth of mine to put 1 mine out there before the game starts. So he goes back to the baseline forward deploy Rindak. And this gives me the points I need to make both of the Imitrons into Icadrons.
That's a massive buff. Well, not buff, but like that's a massively improved change.
Yeah. So now there's 2 repeaters that are sitting in my deployment zone that can be there to layer flyers that come in, layer if Max is trying to do a run on my lieutenant, stuff like that. It's also at a convenient points level where once people start assuming that I'm running the Noctifer, one of those Icadrons goes to an R drone to give me 4 points to make the Noctifer a Spitfire Raziat. For just that little tweak.
You're thinking way too far.
Baggage spot.
You're thinking so far ahead.
So,
but no, that I do like that flexibility. You basically have 8 points total, or if you go to an R drone and then you go to like an Imatron, that's 9 points total that you can kind of throw anywhere you want, depending on the mission lineup or specifically how the meta shifts in interesting ways, or like anything on that. So you could make the Malignos something like a killer hacker or a regular hacker, make the Noctifer into the Raziat, maybe I don't know, you could probably upgrade the Rindak into something else that's mid 30 points even then. There's a lot of stuff you can do with 9 points in vanilla combined.
Honestly, the Rindak is kind of in a similar position as Armand for me right now.
Oh, really?
With vanilla combined for limited insertion, just because he does so much. It's 2 points to make him forward deploy with the same kit. So that's a fairly easy, if I need 2 points, I can take that away. But for 2 points and the same kit, if I don't use that forward deployment because I went second and there wasn't a good safe position for him, I don't feel like I've lost something. Whereas with the Legate, the forward deploy loses the network projection of pitchers for deployable repeaters, and is like Vulcan Shotgun +1 burst on a BS13 MIM3 is marker state is a lot of fun, but the K1 combi can do a similar job 1 order earlier.
Yeah.
So with the Rindak, because so he is one of my 2 primary first line objective like button pushers. So the Void Operator Killer Hacker super jumps, and the Rindak has climbing plus. So depending on where it needs to go, both of those are excellent at getting there. He also brings sensor, so that I can run him into the midfield and just, he's 6'2", move 6, sensor, move 6, sensor. I'm not losing a lot of movement and just being able to clear a large swath for things like puzzlers or the large number of hidden deploy infiltrators that came out of the OSS update. He also, like I was saying, with what I was missing of him, brings the adhesive launcher rifle, brings a +1 burst flash pulse. So he provides that additional way of approaching something if I can't approach it with guns or hacking.
Yep.
And honestly, he's really survivable with dodge +3, dodge -3. Like he dodges on 16s, gives them a -3 to their shooting him. I've had games where I misdeployed him slightly, where he was visible to a hidden deploy model, and he's like, hidden deploy, pops out to kill him. He's like, dodge. Okay, I've corrected my deployment now.
Yep. Does he have a bonus move distance to dodge?
I believe so. I think it's like +1 inch, like most 6'2" models.
Yep. No, it's definitely an underrated set of skills. Like forcing your opponent to be on 10s and you're dodging on 16s. Even if they're throwing 4 dice at you, sometimes you just hit that number and yeah, it's very, very good.
Yeah.
Very underrated.
Yeah. So that is what I would revise the list to. And actually, that's what I have revised the list to.
That's what you have revised.
And yeah. So that will be making an appearance in the near future, depending on how fast I get my Shaz models put together.
At a Thursday gaming event near you. Or a Thursday games night near you. All right.
Yeah.
Moving on to my experience. Now, I was very much like Nick. I haven't played since CanCon, which was in Jan. I had a couple silly games of Shaz at Arc, which was May. But pretty much I have been infinity-less for the past 5 or so months. And then obviously new Maximus came out, and I'm like, well, I kind of have to respect the Max now. So I'll go through some of my notes. So the first list I built my lists based on kind of the missions I thought would be difficult. So the first one is built for Achiel. It's called I Do Everything That He Does, but worse. So this is one of my CanCon lists, kind of rejigged a bit for Achiel. So we have a Bolt Sniper, we have a Blade Engineer, and a Bulletier Spitfire in a Link team. We have the Swiss Guard Missile Launcher, who I'm feeling not as terribly about anymore now that everything else in the game is getting kind of its own Swiss missile, to be honest. We have 2 Auxiliar Forward Observers. we have a Tech B, we have a Fusilier LT and Decoy. Group 2, we have an Orc HMG linked to 2 TAC-aware sensor bots. We have a Locust regular hacker. We have a Flash Pulse bot, and we have a Sucher. Now, the main differences here were the Locust is upgraded to a regular hacker so that he can do 2 more classifieds versus the killer hacker. I've swapped some things out, namely a TR bot to fit a Bulleteer. This is a change that, honestly, I wasn't super keen about. I kind of ran out of time to kind of theorize the lists. But the general idea was that it was kind of repair fodder in case I drew a classified to repair stuff. It also just happens to be a pretty decent, 8 to 24 gun with Mim 6. It's kind of not bad by itself, even though it doesn't have the Evo bonuses and all that kind of nonsense. So that list went well. The new list, which I forgot the name of. Ooh, go on.
I'm curious, because you upgraded the Locust to a regular hacker from a killer hacker. How much do you find that was useful? Because you've still got the 2 Forward Observer Pathfinders.
Yes. So typically how I used Locusts, they're one of my favorite things in the faction. Typically, it is like a last minute, I press a button, I do a thing, whatever. There are, I think, it's either 1 or 2 classifieds that require a hacker to do. The problem with Auxilia is they can't spotlight through a wall. And running Auxilia up tables is quite order intensive and definitely has the potential to be, well, there's no disco balls in this list, there's no vision control in this list, so if I don't have fire superiority on this part of the table, I can't just run an Auxilia up and forward observer HVT. Okay. The Locust kind of starts there, he moves up 4 inches, he does the spotlight, hopefully doing that. It's also kind of a little bit of a vehicle hindrance. It can throw an Oblivion or a Carbonite on a vehicle running through, whereas the killer hacker cannot. And realistically, I kind of resigned myself to I'm not going to play into the hacking game at all, because I know that most of the factions I'm going to play against, I'm not going to win.
Okay. And look at this again. Every one of your forward observers, every one of the 6 of them, 4 of them have deployable repeaters and 2 of them are a repeater.
Yes.
So, yeah, I could see where it's easy enough just to fling an Aux bot up, plant the deployable repeater on the other side of a wall, and then have the Locust spotlight through the wall.
Absolutely. Yep. The actual range of the Locust ability to do that classified is massive. Mm-hmm. I just picked the hacker, strictly speaking, because it could do 2 classifieds more than the killer hacker.
Okay.
And NCA in general, I think, struggles to do all of the classifieds equally well. Obviously, we can do the forward observer classifieds really, really well. We can kind of do the veteran ones well as well. But there's a lot of classifieds where we kind of just drop off. We don't have any great engineer paramedics that really want to run up the table, that kind of thing. So I resigned myself in Achiel to fighting the opponent, trying to stop them doing classifieds, and then hopefully I pull a Nick and my Locust does 3 in a single turn, or 2 in a single turn, or something silly. It's kind of not really what happened, unfortunately, but we'll get to it. The second list is the max list. I forget the name, but I called it Take That Canadians because we 100% got max buffed. So, in Group 1, we have a Red Eye. We have a Bolt Sniper linked with Hannibal, 2 Auxilia Forward Observers, a Mule Bot, and 3 Flash Pulses. We then have Max in Group 2 with a Hexer Multi-Sniper, a Missile Bot, another Auxilia FO, a Sucher, and a Warcore. This list was made specifically for Cutthroat, and kind of superiority being that Max is a great key ups target. There was honestly a couple mistakes with this list. I really, really, really wanted to take a Black Friar, and I was talking to Jordan about it, and he's like, I don't rate it. I'm like, damn, I don't rate it either, I guess. So I traded a Blackfriar for a Clipper missile bot, and that let me upgrade, I think, a Tech B into another Auxilia, which is why there's 3. Against,
It's not a bad upgrade.
It's not a terrible upgrade, but against anything the Auxilia can forward observe for the missile bot, either the Red Eye or Max can just shoot. Typically, I'm going to want a guided. Typically, I'm going to want a guided like Mim 6 things. And Auxilia, even though half of their burst is unopposed, most of the time, at best, it's going to be on 5s or 6s, which is like, it's like, which ended up meaning that missile bot didn't do anything. It did nothing. I kind of thought, oh, maybe I'll, incidental forward observe. I don't know. It didn't end up doing anything, and nearly every game I played, I would have wanted a Blackfriar. Against you, I could have dealt with Armand much easier, I think. I think a Blackfriar nearly statistically one-taps him if it's linked. Against my Akiel opponent, they had the ALF Flyer, and they had a buttload of MSV, meaning like Agimas and Asuras and Satras. Blackfriar rocks their world. Against Josh, I don't necessarily think the Blackfriar does super well, but Josh has mimetism on quite a few pieces, being like the Black Hearts and Achilles and that kind of thing. So that's decent. Who else? I think we'll get to it, but basically, nearly every game the Blackfriar had a really decent target to shoot at, and I probably should have trusted my gut to... my last opponent had an Atalanta. And the Blackfriar's great at shooting at Atalanta as well. I probably should have trusted my gut and taken the Blackfriar. One thing that makes this list really strong, I think, is Max being 0 Swick, and the fact that you can also comfortably fit another 4 Swick weapons in, considering that your Swick weapons are actually rather cheap. So you're just laying on absolute devastating amounts of fire. When it comes to NCA, I think you should always have something off the table, even if it's not a Swiss guard. So if you're taking Max, I think since NCA starts in its DZ majority, like maybe you take a Peacemaker, maybe you take a Locust, you want something off the table. You don't want to make it seem like you're playing honest. Oh, man. Sensor. Sensor is a ridiculously good skill. Ridiculously good skill.
Yes.
Even if you're not...
I found out Hannibal has sensor.
Absolutely. And it's a WIT 14 sensor, so there's no chance of failure.
Yeah.
Even if you're not using it like that, the ability to get +6 on a Discover roll is actually really, really good against silly things like Hellic Camo Markers, or Gudin, or like anything of that nature, or even like mines from a distance.
Awkward mines.
Yeah. Just silly things like that, just almost guaranteeing that you can like discover that instead of being on like a 10 or a 7 or something silly like that. It's really, really valuable. And then you add on top the, discovering in the midfield, like the midfield specialists like your Malignos and Puzzlers and silly things like that. Sensor is just a very, very, very good skill that people should take more of. Yep. In saying that, Max obviously takes an absolute age to kill stuff. Still, most stuff that's on ARO is still going to take 4 or 5 orders. I had it happen multiple times, not just against you, but Max killing a Blackheart took 3 or 4 orders. Max killing a TR bot took me 2 or 3 orders against my first opponent. You can't really guarantee that he's going to just mow through everything. So him in Group 2, potentially, like I wanted the Red Eye to have a ton of orders. Him in Group 2 is fine. I think you just have to temper the expectations of what Max is going to do, and that kind of caught me up a little bit sometimes.
I'm curious with Max. Now, given that your list is probably not a good example because you ran him as the Lieutenant, who also picks up Inspiring Leadership because NCA. Yep. How often did you actually use the suppressive fire on his HMG?
I I used it, but I never shot with it. So this
Okay.
is the other thing. I think inspiring leadership on max in NCA is probably the worst inspiring leadership in the game. That's not saying it's bad, but it's not like a, oh my god, inspiring leadership. The only irregulars you have are the Sacha and the Warcore, which is fine. Like, having two irregulars, I think, is perfectly reasonable, especially when one of them's a Sacha. And NCA struggles to use coordinated orders effectively because either things are in linked teams or they have peripherals. Everything has a goddamn peripheral. So if I wanted to use Max's coordinated order, I could have used it to like shoot with the Hexa Clipper and Max, which is fine. Most of the time, I either used it as like an extra order for Max to move behind cover, or I just put him in suppressive fire. So it wasn't especially good, but he still ends up being a ridiculously hard to kill LT.
Yeah, because I'm curious because if you're not running him as LT, he still has the Thunderbolt, now AP, plus 2 burst. And the only difference basically between the two profiles is suppressive fire. And slightly better long range on this Thunderbolt.
There's one damage as well, whether or not you rate that super highly. But
oh right, okay, thank you. That was the other one I was missing because it's 2 points and half a swick. So I'm curious if that profile is going to get any use when people start to get down to that last like few points and the last swick. But then again, that involves him running not as lieutenant, and I don't think I ran into a max that wasn't lieutenant. So
yeah, I think the mission heavily incentivized that you take Max as the LT, which is fine.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I think the most valuable thing for me is him being 0 Swick. That kind of tips it over the edge for me because I can still comfortably fit the 6 Swick in. And like if I didn't have the missile bot, I would have had an extra HRL. So I would have had like a Spitfire on a vehicle, a multi-sniper that's MSV1, an AP HMG, a hidden deploy MIM6 multi-sniper rifle, and then a Albedo MSV2 HRL. And that covers almost all of your bases with redundancy, it feels like.
Okay. So that profile, the Thunderbolt profile, is probably not worth it, not because of the differences between that and the APHMG, but because the APHMG lieutenant saves you 1.5 Swick.
I think that's kind of what I value it at, because I think like you have 3 Fugazi. I think you can save the points. The 4 points aren't a massive difference. Yeah. And especially if you want to go into the hacking package, saving that Swick means that you can still take, like you're not getting the Corregidor effect where it feels like you're spending half your Swick on guided missile shenanigans or whatever.
Oh, it'll be like you save more Swick if you make him the lieutenant than if you downgrade him to a Thunderbolt.
Yeah.
So, yeah, having a look at the 0 Swick, that unless you have a really good plan, I think that's the main profile for Max.
Yeah, I think if you're just taking the Thunderbolt Max and it's not inspirational leadership, like you can take it as a key ops that isn't your lieutenant, so you're not doubling up on objectives. If you're not doing that, if there isn't a key ops involved, just take an Ulhan. Like an Ulhan is almost a better tag in every regard. Like Max is very hard to kill, so is an Ulhan when it's in marker state. And the Ulhan is arguably less hackable than Max. So, and it's, ridiculous amounts of points cheaper. Yeah, it's ridiculous amounts of points cheaper as well. Okay, I will say as well, I wrote the Max list and I had no idea how to play it going into my first game, so luckily I was chosen as the sacrificial soul that my opponent could smash their head into. We had a new player, Luca, who had 0 games under his belt, so I was thrown against him instead of the Gumby Jordan, who would have, I think, destroyed his soul. So, number one thing about a tournament is you want to practice your lists. If you don't practice with your lists, you are going to struggle because it is not an environment where you're going to learn on the fly very well. You need time to sit down and think about what actually happened to recuperate and understand. Thankfully, I did end up winning 6-2, but only by about 12 army points. I think a really important thing is when you're playing new players at a tournament, it's not about winning. The whole point of the tournament isn't about winning. Winning shouldn't be on your mind. It's about having fun. And I wanted to make sure at the very, very, very best that Luca had a really fun first game. And I think he did. So I didn't push the boot in. I didn't do anything silly. I helped Luca with his deployment. I went, why don't you put this here? Your Thunderbolt should go here. It means your Engineer should be near it, or it's Yudbot. Blah, 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 blah. I didn't leave him to fend for himself. Luca did really, really well. Luca's played a bunch of war games before, so he knew all the rules. He intuitively picked up a ton of stuff that I was super impressed by. Classically, TR Bot went down 3 times and got revived 3 times. It was an absolute pain in the ass. His Omega, he was playing O12, his Omega just ran through me. Very, very luckily, Max is worth 84 points, as we were talking about before. Luca only had 72 points in the zone, which means it was 6-2 to me. If it was the other way round, it would have been 5-3 to Luca. So very, very close game. And yeah, I highly encourage...
Did you go...
I went second. Okay. I hard picked second. I wanted Luca to have a chance to use all of his stuff first. Not in a bad way, but I didn't like dice are swingy. If I got really, really lucky on certain dice rolls, I felt Luca might have been locked out of doing certain things. So I decided I let Luca go first. I hard second. He had the deployment advantage. And yeah, and then he won his second game, so I was super proud.
Oh, excellent.
But yes, we'll be discovering now that my Borderbash lineup was a bit of, well, I won't say a bit. There was a lot of luck involved with me placing as well as I did. All right, so we talked about round 2 with Nick. That was fine. I didn't necessarily get lucky, but I had the right tools to deal with Nick's stuff. I felt like Max dealing with half your Swick in the first turn was fine. The Red Eye being able to slide in and then being able to assassinate the Corontin after 7 or 8 ridiculous orders of dodging and all that kind of silliness.
Mm-hmm.
The dodging on the button.
Silly.
The dice were very silly.
Oh yeah.
Round 3. This was the perfect game to exemplify what the threat of a faction is. I did take the Swisser list, so Jordan's threat was kind of warranted. It was vanilla Aleph, so Jordan had 2 lists. He had a list that was great at doing Acul, and then he had a list that had like MSV out the butt that could deal with the Swissel like absolutely no problem. Unfortunately, Jordan decided to pick his MSV list and really handicapped himself on being able to do classifieds. We both did basically no classifieds. I did my private one, and then we both did one common one. Stupid amounts of luck for me as well. So I came up against the Aleph Flyer. Absolutely ridiculous piece. It fought a bolt out of cover. My bolt was out of cover, so we were both technically out of cover. After about 5 or 6 orders, the bolt kills the Flyer, which is incredibly unlucky considering the thing's 3 structure. And I was out of cover. We just punched each other for 3 turns in a row, and then my bolt does the absolute hero play of screaming up the table, taking face-to-face rolls out of cover, and winning. Jordan revealed a Dazu right in front. We were both in 0 range bands, and then I double crit him. We won't talk about that. But then he managed to touch a HVT and do the veteran card. It was an incredibly scary game. Basically, we just punched each other really hard, and then I filtered 4 or 5 times and just didn't get a classifier that I could do. So I ended the day with a minor win. What's, I think, really important, and I've heard it multiple times over the weekend, is if you're unsure about what list to pick because something, either you've drawn classifieds or, you know, you're coming up against an opponent that has this really scary piece that you really want to counter, I think you should always go with your plan. I don't think you should try and alter against certain factions like James. James does it all the time. He's come up top table against Rob Shepherd. He's come up top table against... I forget who he was at Borderbash. Do you remember who he came up against last round, Borderbash? Basically, he said, I picked the wrong list.
I don't remember. Mm-hmm.
And if you're unsure, I think just go with what you planned before.
That's a really good point, especially when you're writing lists for specific missions. Because if you wrote a list for a specific mission, it likely means your other list isn't that good into that mission. And it doesn't matter how well you can counter the opponent if you can't do the mission.
Yep.
So if he had brought a really good Ikiel list, it sounds like there's a good chance he could have won just by outscoring you and letting you attrition him.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Jordan's list was ridiculously heavy against the Swiss. So there was the Asura Spitfire, which I thought was going to be a hacker, which would have definitely helped if it was a hacker. There was the Agema missile launcher, which is also MSV2. Mm-hmm. There was the Satra Thunderbolt, +1 burst, which I think is also MSV2 and Albedo. And there was the Flyer, which is MSV1 and MIM6. So ridiculously strong against any form of mimetism. But unfortunately, none of those pieces can really do many classifieds. Even the Asura Spitfire can't do that many classifieds. So if you get a bad draw, which I've kind of come to the conclusion that I don't like Acuel as much as I like countermeasures. I think it gets hit by the randomness much harder because out of the 2 classifieds you draw at the beginning, one of those is worth 2, the other one's worth 1. And sure, you can filter, but that costs orders to do. There's a singular button in the center, which means that covering it is probably the objective goal. I think actually doing classifieds to a point is less important than either canceling classifieds or killing your opponent's dudes that can do classifieds. So I think it's less classified focus, and overall you end up drawing less classifieds, and if the classifieds are worse or better for your opponent, it's a lot more impactful. Whereas in countermeasures, you're doing 3 around, and you kind of have options. Go on.
Oh, so interesting, because I see it the other way. I like Akiel better than countermeasures because there's more ability to manipulate the board state.
I do agree. I like the ability to like filter the signal. I do like the ability to cancel classifieds. I think there should maybe be a limitation on how many times you can do it, but I like that. But I think that if you're playing a game where you're both hitting each other in the head and neither of you can filter the signal reliably, or the table doesn't really support you pressing a button a lot, then you have a private worth 2, and you hope to God that private is a classified that you can do fairly easily. And then you'll only have 6 classifieds throughout the game, and half of them your opponent pick, knowing what's in your army and what's in their army. I like to play around it, but I still think I like countermeasures more.
Okay.
that's just a gut reaction, I suppose. I suppose this game was a bit polarizing in that sense that I filtered 3 or 4 times. And I'm like, I haven't got a classified I can do yet.
Yeah, I guess the point. Whereas, let's see, you're okay because the two that are on the table are two that have been filtered wrong. Yeah, have been selected by both players out of two. So it's not a pure random flop like countermeasures, but you can manipulate that later on. Would you be more comfortable with it if there were two buttons that behaved equally?
I don't know, to be honest.
Mhm.
I think most of the thing for me is the private's worth twice as much as a regular one, and
Mhm.
there's only 2 in the center that aren't random versus 3 that are.
Mhm.
Which it's fine. Like, I'm not saying the mission's bad at all. I think I'm
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
like, I prefer the randomness of countermeasures. It does force you to build differently. And I think in Achiel, you can
Mhm.
kind of build to be really strong at these 12, 13 classifieds, and you can kind of
Yes.
ignore
Yeah.
the other ones. Um,
Mhm.
but if you're coming up against a really good opponent, a good flop for them could be a bad flop for you, and you could draw 2 cards and go, I can't do any of these, but I have to pick which one's going to be harder for my opponent, blah, 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 blah.
Mhm.
I don't know. Maybe there's more feels bad involved because you are picking the classifieds, and you might pick wrong,
That
but
could be.
I think I just,
Yeah, it definitely
yeah.
requires a bit more reading your opponent and what they've deployed to select how easy is it for me to do this classified versus how easy it for my opponent to do it.
Yeah. I also think that there is potentially the feels bad of like, again, I reveal a locust turn 3 and touch the button, and then I cancel your card and I win, because it's like, it's not just a
Mhm.
1-point flip, it's like, it's a multi-point flip if you're tied. Like,
Yes. Yeah.
it's very significant to cancel even 1, and canceling 2 is like, oh boy.
Mm.
So that was my game. Oop,
So
go on.
for the final round, he played into James
Alistair's
played into
tack.
Alistair's tack, which I can see that getting in his head a little bit more because tack is what he played for ages
Mm.
before he switched over to Yuching.
Ivory says almost like Sensor is amazing right now and very valuable. I agree with you. The problem is people don't use Sensor on future problems. I don't think they have forward thought enough to do that. So like, people censor for puzzlers because, like, if I keep walking forward, I'm going to say puzzlers anyway. I'm going to try and get rid of the puzzlers because it's going to be a thing. I don't think many people are going to try and censor a locust because you have no idea it's a locust. It could be a Garuda. It could be a Hexa. There's so many things it could be, and you're not just like throwing random, you know, maybe in Achiel you do because it's probably near the center button, but
I think when you have that concentration, yeah, like Akil, where there is one button, it is easier to censor that because you know roughly where it is.
yeah,
Uh,
it completely
but
depends
then
on
you
the
also get
faction.
situations, yeah, like our game where Hannibal just went, I don't need the second half of my order. I'm going to censor. Like, oh, a Malignos.
Yeah, that was amazing. Like, I have attack aware. I touch this corner. I censor. I know you have a Malignos somewhere in this list. I censor. It might be here. Might be on the other
Yeah,
side of the table. Oh, look, there's a Malignos.
yeah.
Did that change the game? I don't actually think it really did.
Um,
You still, it lived, and you still did stuff with it, and it only
it
died.
lived. Yeah,
It only died because of like poor dice on your account and good dice on my account.
yeah. Yeah, given that it didn't die from being revealed, the impact of the game of that was
It
I'm not sure.
wasn't meaningless
Yeah,
because
because you spent orders trying to kill it and didn't.
well, I censored it on my very last order, I think, and then
I thought no, because the red eye tried to shoot it.
I didn't try and shoot it with a red eye because
Really?
No.
That must be the next turn then.
Yeah, I think it was the next turn because I knew it was over 24 and you're Mim 6, and I'm like, this is silly. I'm not doing this. Mm-hmm. But then you tried to kill Hannibal, and unfortunately that didn't work.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
All right. So I had 3 wins. Woo! Going into round 4, which I get paired up against. Of course, it's Lost of Lieutenant Josh with his perfect cutthroat list. So Max is definitely not as good a Cheops as Achilles, and I got absolutely smashed 0 to 10. I did make some mistakes, some very obvious mistakes. So the first thing is we played on Hugh's jungle table. Now, for those not aware, Hugh's jungle table is basically full of massive, infinitely tall pillars that you can't see through, and they are strange shapes. And the way that they're placed on the table means that it's very much like a dogfighting table. There's not a ton of lines that are over 24 inches long. And what that means is that my list, which was primarily focused on plus 16-inch guns, didn't struggled really hard into assaulting a very, very, very good deployment of Josh in turn 1. In also doing that, I gave Josh an incredibly good side for Achilles. He had a perfect line to run up the table and never take a gunfight out of 16. And if he was at a disadvantage, the man's dodging on 18s. He's 3 wounds, he's Mim, and he's dodging on 18s. He's like a Rindak on crack. It was very, very good. I had some, again, decently lucky dice, which meant that by the end of turn 1, it was still fairly competitive. But I kind of flubbed with my red eye. I flubbed with Max. Like, I killed a Blackheart. I struggled to kill a Satchar. By the end of turn 2, Achilles had decided that everything needed to die and that plasma was the most effective way to do it, which really kicks Max in the teeth. Plasma does. And I got thoroughly smashed. So the one thing that I didn't do is I rocked up on the day and I didn't look at the table, and I had already decided in my head, I need first turn. If I'm going to win this game, I need first turn. And that was definitely a mistake. I think Josh would have had similar struggles. There was so few lines to shoot pitches with Pandora to actually get Max and isolate him. And throwing Achilles up the table would have had the same problem as me trying to throw Max or the Red Eye up the table, I think.
Sounds like the table kind of just destroyed the first player's first turn because whoever that was had to close to a distance to fight the opponent because they couldn't do it across the table.
Certain pieces could. I mean, Achilles isn't bad. Don't get me wrong. Achilles isn't bad, but I think I could slow him down enough to prevent him from kicking me in the teeth too hard. Things like super jumping ridiculous boys who can kind of even Razjats and stuff could definitely murk. There was so few places on the table that you could see your friendly guys from another spot. What I really struggled with was this was the third time I've run this list, and I had no idea what I was doing. So I didn't really have an appropriate game plan, and unfortunately it turned to shoot what I can see. And then when that didn't work, I just spec fired a bunch of grenades with the Red Eye, and I killed a Nicodron, and that was it. And then Achilles goes, I'm going to delete you now. Yes, which was the difference because Josh knew his list exceptionally well. Hoppy, the Cheops gives you +3 dodge. So specifically in Cutthroat, if Achilles is the Cheops, he will dodge on 18s. Josh only needed to reveal 1 puzzler as well. So that can kind of tell you how that game went. But yes, I don't think my other list would have done as well either. My Hexa and Bolt were struggling to get lines on anything above 16. Most of their fights were taken in 0 range band. So perfect opportunity for Plasma Achilles. very bad opportunity for me. If I wanted something better, I think my NCA lists can struggle, kind of similar to how you've mentioned. We either have a bunch of 16 plus heavy weapons, or we have a bunch of SMGs. We don't have a great amount of like 8 to 16 good weapons. Like, you've got the Bulletier, but it's hackable. You've got Hannibal multi-marksman rifle, but he's like 29 points. Bolt Spitfire, the one wound dude. The Red Eye's good, but again, it's hackable. It's big. It's a struggle to move around a table with infinitely tall buildings with a vehicle, because the vehicle doesn't get its height advantage very easily. So yeah, I very much struggled, and I very much got my teeth kicked in, which means that I am not fighting anyone in the top bracket for round 5, but I did get the lovely Sam, who was running Steel Phalanx. And now this is Radial Unmasking. I decided to take the Swizzle list because it has the Locust, and the Locust is the kingpin of this entire mission for me. I ended up winning 6-4. Yay! Which gave me my very first 4-1 tournament record from my permanent record of 3-1-1. So Sam ended up going first, and I picked deployment. Very much like myself against Josh, Sam threw Penthus Leia at me, and unfortunately she failed to properly attack the DZ. She ran into mines, and she ran into Auxilia. Auxilia being especially annoying. I'm basically just forcing dodges. If Penny wants to shoot, she's taking a heavy flamethrower, and that meant that the attack failed on the first turn, and Sam didn't do as much of the objective as he could have. I got incredibly lucky and managed to pick the designated target on the first go and then kill it an order later, which means Sam was on the back foot for the whole rest of the game. But me being me, I obviously nearly threw the game. In a second short skill, I was getting absolutely murdered. I had about 5 things left on the table. Alki peeks a camouflaged Swiss Guard. I choose to reveal. I really shouldn't have. The Swiss Guard was on 12s, I think, and then Alki just braps, and the Swiss Guard is deleted. Then, very, very lucky for myself, the center console is on top of a massive 2-story building. With the amount of orders Sam has left, he has to run, and then he has to whole order jump with Alki to get to the top. As he does, the Locust drops a boarding pistol and knocks out Alki. But 3 orders left. He has a Thorokidi paramedic within 24 inches. He spends 3 orders trying to paramedic Alki from, I think, about 18 inches away on 3s. Fails, which means that I win 6-4, having only killed 1 target. And the Locust was just, again, I think it's my favorite piece in the game because it kind of rounds out NCA's ability very much. I think anyone saying that NCA's S++ ridiculous best faction in the game is a bit silly. If Swizzles are a massive problem in your community, you probably don't have enough terrain on your table. Or you don't have enough, MSV2 smoke shooters. Like, a Swizzle really doesn't like it when it gets smoked and shot through MSV. Oh, so, very, very happy with myself. 7th place, so even with 4 wins, 6 people better than me, which was not surprising considering that the entire top 10 was Victorians, except for 10th place, which was John. So, yeah, Victoria is doing exceptionally well as of late. Okay, thoughts?
What are your thoughts on your lists?
Thoughts on my list. Max is still a sometimes piece. I basically have the same opinion of him as I did, except now he's not so memey in terms of like shooting with. in NCA specifically. In other factions, I could be completely wrong. The Ulhan is basically a better max. It's better at shooting. It's better at not getting hacked. It's better at not getting CC'd, even though Max can CC really well. Max is just more durable, which he has always been. And as I mentioned before, I think he has the least value inspiring leadership in the game. He can't use the coordinated order effectively. There's only 2 irregulars to flip. It's kind of, whatever. I wouldn't take him just for the inspiring leadership. I would take him for the 0 Swick if you're playing a really heavy mission. What we kind of didn't talk about with NCA is the list building process starts with, do you want a disco ball or do you not want a disco ball? If you don't want a disco ball, you're putting a lot more pressure on maintaining fire superiority, which Max definitely helps with because you can just fit more guns. The other question you ask yourself, now that the blocker has been nerfed and no longer has a pitcher, is, do you want to play the hacking game or not? I chose not to. This very easily, I think, could have bit me in the ass if I played against one of the heavy hacking lists, either in Next Wave, in OSS, in Aleph. I got very lucky to dodge a tremendous amount of hacking. So you ask those questions, and then if you don't take disco balls or hacking, you really have to have plans to just dominate the table fire-wise. Max helps you do that, and that's a great reason to take Max. If you take an Ulhan, you might want to take a bit more of a rounded list that has maybe the blocker to stop vehicles and that kind of thing. The Swissel list, I had a lot more practice with this. I took it to CanCon. The Bulleteer link is messy. I wouldn't recommend it. I just kind of didn't know what to do with it, so I'm like, I'll just take this. Sure, let's go. Yeah. If you want to beat NCA, play a mission that requires objectives and then cover the midfield in repeaters, because half the specialists are going to be hackable. All right.
With Max,
yes,
we saw a lot of him. And I'm curious what your opinion is on why. Because for myself, I think it was a mix of he's brand new, again. People have wanted to play him, but he hasn't been had a profile worthy of it. And then combine that with Cutthroat and another Keops mission.
I think half of
Do
it.
you think this is just
half of it's the Keops. He almost on paper he feels like the perfect Keops. The other half is, oh my god, he's actually good now, and people want to take him. People just I think people just want to try new cool stuff. Having a tag that is basically immune to getting shot, that is by anything that is armor based, is really, really cool.
Yeah.
Even if he does take 3 wounds, he pops Eclipse, and if you don't melee him, which is really hard to melee anyway, he's not dead. So he's a very, very resilient LT. He almost feels like the best of all worlds now in any regard, aside from cost. Yeah, I would attribute most of it to the Keops, personally. Because I'm not really sure what other Keops you're picking in those factions. Like vanilla Pano, maybe it's Joan. Maybe it's like you're struggling. You really want something that's high wound. You want something that can kill stuff. Superiority. I don't think you really care too much who your Keops is, so long as it's something that's not dead and it's something in a zone. Like you can make it a baggage. Well, you can't. I don't know. I don't think you can make it a baggage spot. You can make it something that's not going to live, like a Tech B or something like that. You don't need to make it, your Cutthroat Keops, but I think the main point was it needs to be able to kill stuff and it needs to be able to survive.
Well, and Max enjoys +3 dodge and attack aware, so
yeah, I mean he's already got attack aware, so you're losing.
Oh, he does.
He does. So you're losing attack awareness.
Oh, okay.
The +3 dodge is good. If you have a Tech B raw, he's dodging on 19s, which is cool. It's fine. It's whatever. I just took him because I know in Cutthroat, he's not dying to Guided at all, and that's almost the feels bad way of losing Cutthroat. Is like,
yes,
I picture you. I guided your LT. I guided your K-Ops. You're now like, it's now 6 to me, 0 to you. And if you want to, you have to stop me from killing anything with my K-Ops. And it's ridiculously difficult to do that. So Max alleviates that. He's like a safe space for K-Ops. Another thing I was going to say is revealing, like, even though a Swiss Guard is exceptionally strong, revealing it early is almost always a mistake. Every player I faced, I think, had a solution for a Swiss Guard if I revealed it Order 1, Order 2. I think the impact of your reveal, like, you shouldn't be looking to snipe as many points or swick as you can. I think you want to look at what your opponent's outs are, how they're playing, and if your Swiss reveal basically costs them 3 or 4 orders, I think that's more valuable than killing the 40-point HI or whatever you're shooting at. If it's not actually doing the objective, I don't think it's worth necessarily revealing against. And I kind of saw this. I didn't need to reveal against Sam's Alki, but I did, and I kind of really paid for it.
Like, there can be advantage in allowing your opponent to commit slightly more before you reveal it. So unless you're revealing it because, oh, I get to shoot a fire team, yay, obviously the reveal for that. But if you let them get a little bit more out of position and now reveal it, you can put them in a situation where they have to spend even more orders to get that model back. If it's something like even like a valuable piece, like I want to say tag, but that's not necessarily the best example. But something that they need to commit and then retreat, or that you know where it's going and you can stop them halfway, and now they have to commit more orders from smoke throwers who are too far away, or to go a long way around on an already limited order pool. Yeah.
I think people are are super scared of losing models. If it's like if it's turn 1 and you're going second, you're gonna lose stuff. If whatever piece, let's say Alki for ease of sake, if Alki is halfway up the table and she has, let's at max say 4 orders left, and I can see what those 4 orders can do, and I go, that's acceptable. Like, I don't need to reveal against that. If you're going to kill an orc spot, maybe you kill a whole auxilla, and then you retreat behind a mid building or something. That's fine. Whereas I revealed my Swiss Guard against blah, blah, blah. Like, I revealed my Swiss Guard against his Penthesilea. Penny has immune arm, which I forgot about, so she only took 1 wound. But then immediately Atalanta pops out and goes bang and shoots the Swiss Guard in the head. Well, I didn't know the Atalanta was there, and I've kind of just completely ruffled my entire game plan because I was scared that Penny was going to get 2 or 3 orders in my DZ. And you know, sometimes
you've revealed your hidden deploy before they revealed, whereas if you had waited, you wouldn't have taken much damage. But now you can react to their hidden deploy, and they still have unknown information.
Yeah, I think, you know, our meta specifically is starting to value hidden deploy really, really highly. And being selective with your HD can you know, give you way more value than you think in the long run. I think the last thing is like the missions. ITS 17 is in a really good spot, I think. Our game of B-Pong felt pretty fair, to be honest. It wasn't as second turn geared as it used to be. P-Ops is an interesting mechanic that I like, that I think deserves an update. Potentially letting it be on maybe different units, or putting it in different missions or something like that, or just updating the direct action missions to kind of like an N5 standard.
Yeah. Yeah, the direct action missions really weren't touched much, whereas everything else got a really good overhaul.
Even if it's just operational learning or, some little bits to make it a bit more N5 coded. We talked about Akil, that's
Figure out
fine.
something better to do with the last point in the 3 antennas uplink
Yes.
than have an active lieutenant.
Which is
Yeah, I would
pointless as
love to
hell.
see
Yeah.
something more meaningful in that last point.
Yep. Radial unmasking turned out to be like a great use of adding radial to an already like good mission.
Yes.
It changes the mission in really interesting ways that aren't super obvious when you just tell someone it's unmasking but with radial deployment. I think everyone should probably give radial unmasking a try, and it. There are people out there that dislike unmasking, and I can kind of understand why. Traditional unmasking against units like Kohar, where they just fart bomb across walls. That was like the traditional, you know, annoying thing that happened. That's not going to happen as much in radial unmasking because that guy who's hitting them through walls is like, instead of being, let's say 10, 12 inches away from the guy, he might be 24 inches away. He's a whole half of a table away. You have to be way more selective. The buttons are further away, which means that it's not a single specialist running like down the line to press them. Yeah, you control a lot less of the table, which means there's way more no man's land, and that really shows in kind of the deployment of the HVTs and the value of different units, especially being airborne deployment units, being really, really valuable in that mission as well.
Yeah, I think the larger space to deploy the HVTs in is the big one for me in making that such a better mission than just regular unmasking, because you've got more choice and variety of positions and groupings based on the terrain. In traditional unmasking, a lot of times I remember getting like either you've got them like all evenly spread out or you've got them all clumped up. And a lot of times it was all clumped up because there was only one or two good places to deploy them. And you might as well put them all together because then you can mine that area up and repeater net over it so that you can defend it versus scatter them and make them difficult to get to. With radial, I don't, I think my game against John was the first one that I've seen my opponent put them clustered. But even at that, they were probably, they were all in the same area, but they were probably 5 inches apart from each other in a chain.
Yep.
So it wasn't like I couldn't pop multiple buttons and then just template all of them. They were all still individual targets. Whereas I was able to put like one on my right side and then two on the other side that I could see really well on one side, and then the other was just kind of an awkward approach. Unfortunately, I rolled randomly, and the one I rolled randomly was the one he guessed first. So that happens, like it did in your game. But
Yep.
I think the variety of positions makes it more interesting and more difficult to have an obvious decoy versus obvious the only defendable HVT is the real one.
Yeah, I told my opponent I roll randomly for unmasking for that very reason, because I'm coded where like if I just remove the mind games of like, ooh, this one's the hardest to get to, or this one's the most covered by AROs. If I remove that, it's way easier for me to just like play the game and not psych myself out by picking potentially the obvious one because it's the most offended or whatever. But in radial unmasking, as you say, there's so much more places to put them, and they're so much further apart that it's an actual dedication to get to one and not have the rest of them around it.
Yes. Yeah. I would have done better in my game if I had selected the HVT rather than rolled randomly. And I kind of I rolled randomly and saw the result and was considering I kind of didn't want that one, but then didn't change it and didn't override the random roll, which in hindsight I probably should have, just looking at the layout of the table.
But you respected the roll.
Yes. Yeah.
It's too much.
Probably a habit I should break with radial unmasking.
Yep.
Because you actually have choice and more varieties and places you can put them. So you can have an HVT, different HVT positions that require different things to approach. Some that you can see better versus some that are going to require more orders because you have to go around corners and walk farther. I think there's more argument to actually think about and pick which HVT you want to be the real target in radial unmasking than there is in regular unmasking.
Absolutely. 100%. The HVTs basically always have something facing them in regular unmasking. You put them down, you know where they are, you deploy, and you go, even if they're spread out, 2 on each corner and 1 in the middle, that's basically just then how you deploy.
Yep.
All right. Well, this has been Nick and I's thoughts about our Borderbash experience. Join, I believe it's Jordan and Josh. I think Josh is coming in 2 days for our winner's interview with Infinity the Dante, honorary member of Loss of Lieutenant who won Borderbash. And if you are a member of our Patreon, you can hop in live and ask Dante all the nagging questions about Next Wave, what makes them so good. You can complain. I don't think Next Wave are that particularly strong. I just think everyone who plays Next Wave is a goddamn veteran who is really, really good at the game. Unfortunately. But, yeah.
Rob just did a tier list, and I think the conversation he and Jordan had over Next Wave really sums up where we're at right now in the meta, and that's the Next Wave players have started to really hone their lists, so they know what's going on, but the opponents haven't played against those honed lists enough to understand what's going on. But I don't think it's going to take long for that time to pass, and the players or the opponents starting to recognize how to start to play into Next Wave.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's just it's a faction that expresses skill incredibly well. And I think if you're playing against a good... This is kind of why Infinity statistics are kind of bullshit to me. If you're playing a good player, you're more likely to lose regardless of what faction they're playing. And it's just at Borderbash, good players played Next Wave and came first and second. So, all right. So that's in 2 days from now. So you can join us on Thursday for that. Until then, I've been Tristan.
And I've been Nick.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.